What's up, folks, and welcome to Retro Ramble. So, we are back in Shmupland today. Oh yes, one of my favorite lands indeed. And this is a collection I've been looking forward to showing you guys because they are some fantastic shmups and from one of the most historically storied shmup developers, and they're games that have not gotten a lot of love in terms of being presented on modern systems for a long time. So I really wanted to show these off because if you're into shmups, these are some classics that you absolutely should play. So we're taking a look at the Toaplan Arcade Shoot 'em Up bundle. That's what I'm calling it. This is a bundle in that you can buy all the games together on Steam, but it's not really a bundle because the games are their own separate things. So we're going to talk about a few things here, including the history of Toaplan a little bit, as well as the technical breakdown of what these collections bring to the table. So if you're not interested in that, you just want to see gameplay, check the chapter skips down below. You can easily jump around to gameplay of each title individually. But I encourage you to stick around for this because I think this puts a lot of context into this collection and why I think it's something you might want to check out. So let's talk about Toaplan a little bit. So Toaplan was a Japanese game developer that was around for quite a long time. They were actually formed a month after I was born, actually. God, I'm getting old. And they unfortunately went under in the mid-90s. They produced mostly shmups, though they did do a few other things. And they also produced stuff almost exclusively for arcade. Not entirely. They did do a few things on the Genesis in particular as well, but they were mostly an arcade developer. And the shmup community honestly really considers these games to be classics. They made stuff that was challenging, but all their games played very different. They had their own different mechanics, their own different systems to them, and they're considered these guys are considered legends within the industry. And as you can see, after Toaplan went under, a lot of their staff went on to form and work at some other extremely well-regarded Japanese developers, predominantly in the shmup space as well. I mean, Cave is the stuff of legend as well, right? So you can see that there's some real pedigree behind this stuff. So this is just the Wikipedia article, but it's a pretty good article that is sourced to heckin' that has a lot of information on them. So if you want to learn more about them, check this out. But needless to say, Toaplan is very well regarded, and for a long time the sort of rights to their games were kind of up in limbo, and you didn't see them on home platforms. The only way to play them was either to get original arcade boards or to emulate them, which was restricted the number of people who were able to play them. But now we have an easy way to play some of their original classics, and this implies that there's going to be more than one bundle as well. So this is the Steam page. You can buy these as a bundle, but you can buy them independently as well. Now, your best value is absolutely if you buy them all together. But if you want to buy them individually, if you only want particular ones, you can do that. But if you buy more than two and you decide to buy other ones later, you kind of have ripped yourself off. So I do recommend the bundle because these are all pretty good games. And here's where things get a little bit more confusing, because these are only and probably ever only will be on PC. The console rights to Toaplan games have been acquired by M2, which is another fantastic Japanese developer, and they are putting out their own reinterpretations of these games on home consoles. M2 stuff like this tends to be pretty expensive, and they definitely are more expensive, but M2 does an amazing job. So maybe I'll cover those someday if I get the opportunity, maybe not, I'm not sure. But these versions here that we're checking out are only on PC right now, and I don't know if they'll ever come anywhere else. Both Tatsujin, which is the company that owns Toaplan's IPs, as well as Bitwave Games, which is the team who developed these, were actually both recently acquired by Embracer Group, so along with seemingly everyone else in the industry. So maybe at some point we'll see everything reunited under one banner again. I don't know. But these are the PC versions that we're going to be checking out here. So as you can see, we've got Zero Wing, Twin Cobra, Outzone, and Truxton. These are all very different games that play very different ways, but they all have that Toaplan DNA on them that you can see very obviously here. So we're going to talk about the technical elements of what each of these, these modernizations bring to the table, and then I'll show you a little bit of each game so you can decide which ones you want to get. So, but we're going to use Zero Wing as both the first game and what we are going to use as the sort of basis for our little technical briefing here, if you will. Though, what I'm showing you here are things that largely apply to all the different titles. So you have a lot of, an idea what we're getting at here. So, When you fire this up, it launches very, very quick because this is effectively just, you know, emulation in a fancy wrapper. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. That's a good thing. But I'm on an Xbox controller, but you can play this with other things as well. If I hit the select button, this is where you get the meat and potatoes of this offering. So there's a fair bit to go over here, but I'll try to do it fairly quickly. So first things first, let's just go down the menu. So you've got your video options. You can change whether you're in full screen or a window. You can change between borderless window and exclusive full screen if you want. You can change the way the pixel scaling works in various different ways, including some methods here like steps interpolation, which is not something I was familiar with. But you can change that. You can either lock the frame rate at 60 frames a second, which is the way they recommend it for best play on modern monitors, or you can use the original, slightly more varying frame rate of the original game. Some purists might prefer that, or if you're actually feeding your PC out to a CRT monitor, which some people will do for games like this, gives you that option. Really, really cool. I do like that quite a bit. Audio, there's a sound test. You can also turn the in-game music on and off, which is kind of cool. Lots of options there. You have the ability to completely rebind your both keyboard and controller inputs if you want. This has what's called Steam input and raw input mode. This defaults to Steam input. I highly recommend you use raw input. The developers actually told me too that this is the better way to do it for the best input experience. But as you can see here, crazy amount of options that you can rebind here if you want. Really, really cool that they've given you all that option. So lots you can do there. You can change what's called the location. So this affects whether you're playing the Japanese, European, or American versions of the arcade ROMs. Typically with games like these doesn't affect gameplay that much, but you can see there's a little blurb under the options there, which will give you an idea of what you're going to be changing. These were options that arcade operators could usually set on the boards to change the experience for their patrons. So you can see you can change the difficulty. Most of these games only give you 2 lives to start with. So yeah, be aware of that. But you can change that. You can change the points at which you get more ships. You can have sound on for the attract mode if you want. And you can make it so that when you press start, the game will automatically feed a credit into the machine for you. So you don't have to do that separately. Or if you want that authentic experience, you can change that too. Nice little touch. You know, I like that. Visually, there's borders. There aren't very many of them for the most part, but you can do that if you want. You can change them around. You can also remove this sort of LCD or monitor bezel frame if you want, which I think is kind of cool. And this is something I thought was very interesting. They have overlay options here. So you have what's called the music visualizer, the channel visualizer, or stats. So if you have the music or channel visualizer on, what this does is has little waveforms like this that show what each sound channel in the game is playing, or you can have a single one that shows the entirety of the soundscape. It's distracting, but it's very cool to watch. I think it adds a lot of interesting personality to things. And then you can have stats, which shows you how many enemies you've killed, how many shots you've taken, you know, things like that. This is a good thing to have potentially if you're looking to, you know, play for competitive methods as well, or if you're trying to max out a score. You can also have a permanent tutorial on screen as well to show you how different things work. Cool little touches there. I like that. There's also full assists here, auto fire, auto dodge. You can change your health. You can absorb extra hits. You can have it show the hitboxes, or rather the hitbox size. You can adjust the hitbox sizes. So you can see here under the menu there's a little overlay. This will actually show you where you need to get hit and where enemies need to get hit to take damage. Super cool. There is a rewind system if you want to do that as well. And you also have languages for the menus. You can also change between 1 and 2 player exclusive versions of the ROMs if you want. This game does not have online co-op. It's local only, but Steam Remote Play would work fine for this. There's also a full practice mode. You can pick the mission, the checkpoint, what type of weapons you have, how upgraded you are, all of these different things. Again, if you're practicing for perfect runs or high scores, perfect way to do that. There's also an intro here. We'll get to that later. So there is a thing you can do for that. And as you can see here, so you can change sort of presets for the scan lines as well, but you can also go in here and customize these if you want. Again, I'm not a big scanline guy generally. These games do come with a certain amount of scan lines enabled out of the gate, which is, I think, is interesting, but actually is pretty well done. But if you want to change these to your preference, you got a lot of options. The game didn't have a default option at one point, which was really kind of a pain, but they've added that in. These games have had a couple of patches since they came out. They actually launched pretty rough, to be honest with you, but Bitwave has put in some real work into these, and they're patched up very nicely now at time of recording, and they've committed to supporting them some more. You can also restart the game, and look at the credits for the collection itself. Now, you know that I am a big fan with shmups of online leaderboards and replays. Well, we got one of them here, and it's pretty well implemented. No replays, unfortunately, but I know replays are tricky to implement, but again, it's something that it is a nice to have. But you do have online leaderboards here. So there are multiple different modes. You can switch between the global leaderboards, and you can scroll around these if you like. Global near user, which means it will show your score, and then people around you. So there's my highest score there. You have your friends leaderboard, which is always cool. This is a little weird right now. Oh, there we go. Because yeah, it's acting a little funny there. It's never done that before. But yeah, there's only one friend I know who's playing this right now. And then you got all of these different modes that you can switch between. So this is the sort of main leaderboard, which is one player, single credit, which means you can't qualify for this if you continue, and using no assists. But there's single credit with assists. There's multi-credit with no assists. There's anything. So credits and assists. And there's a separate leaderboard for each of these that you can filter through. And I think that's really neat. You can do a lot of stuff here. There we go. There's my my friends leaderboard. So there's a lot you can do, and a lot you can switch between. Oh yeah, and these are co-op as well, which gives you a lot of options as well. The games, again, when they launched, had an issue where even when you were playing single player, it counted everything as co-op, which was a little strange. That has since been fixed as well. So just so you know. So here's the single credit, no assist mode. So lots of options there. Would replays have been nice? Yes, but you know, whatever. You know, it's not the end of the world. So you have a lot of options there, and from a technical end, I think they've done a really good job giving people a lot of options here. These are not just thrown together collections. There has been real love and care put into these. Yeah, so, okay, so let's start going through the games. So, of course, we're going to start here first with Zero Wing. Now, Zero Wing is a game that even people who don't know shmups might know of, because this game has spawned probably the biggest meme in the history of memes, certainly up there. And that is the famous "all your base are belong to us" meme. Now, there was some controversy when this first came out, because this is the arcade version of Zero Wing. That famously badly translated intro is from the Genesis version, which is not in this package. These are the only the arcade versions. And people were like, well, where's the intro? And Bitwave was like, well, it didn't have the intro. And people were kind of bummed about that. So they actually said, okay, we're going to do something about that. So what they did is they didn't just put in that intro from the Genesis version. They did their own modern version of it. Now, some people are going to like this and some people are not. I think it's kind of interesting. So basically, they took that famous meme image or meme intro and put their own spin on it. So it still has bad translation, but it's different bad translation. And they put in newer, much more advanced animations, and really decided to give the thing its own personality that they decided to put in. Some people are going to think this is cool. I think it's very well done. But people aren't gonna necessarily like it because it's different. It's bad. It still has bad translation, but it's not nearly as bad as the original was. And some people are not gonna like that. It would have been cool if they could have put in the original version and this reinterpretation. Due to the complex licensing around the Toaplan games, there may have been a reason they couldn't do that. I really don't know. But I still think this is pretty well done, but it's going to be up to you whether or not you like it. But they put the intro in here, which they didn't have to do at all, and YouTube exists. You want to see the original, you can do that real easy, you know? So, but it's cool that they you know, they did something with it anyway. So, all right, let's fire this up here. So, Toaplan games, by and large, had no story whatsoever. These shmup games there's nothing to them. You hit the start button, it launches you into the game, and it goes, there be enemies, blow day up. That is what you got to do here. So they're all like this. So Zero Wing is, most Toaplan shmups were actually vertically oriented. This one is actually horizontally oriented, as you can see here. So you have a few different... The thing that's neat about these games is they all have their own little personalities and play mechanics. They're not all just reskins of the same concept, which a lot of shmup developers did do. Every one of these was unique in terms of how it played, and that's one of the reasons Toaplan is so well regarded. So, in Zero Wing, you've seen me going through here. You have different types of weapon power-ups that you can get that will attack enemies in different ways and do different kinds of damage. And you also have a tractor beam option. And the tractor beam allows you to do something not entirely unlike what you could do back in, say, Galaga or something like that, which is you pull an enemy in towards you, and they're basically your shield. It's an easy way to give yourself a free hit. And that's the thing, because this game is very unforgiving. You get hit once and you dead. So you got to really make sure that you learn enemy patterns and dodge really, really well here. But you have this option here to pick up enemies, to either use them as shields, or to, as you saw there, though I didn't actually hit one, you can take enemies and throw them at other enemies. So they can double as a weapon for you, and sort of your get out of hairy situations free card, if you will. And that's kind of what this game did differently versus a lot of shmups, where the secondary attack was a screen clearing bomb attack, where you had limited uses of it, but it would clear out either the entire screen to get you out of a bind, or at least the area immediately in front of you. In this, you don't get that. You just have the ability to grab enemies and pull them towards you. And do that. So again, a bit of a unique thing. I'm going to tell you, all of these games are hard. Shmups are generally hard. Arcade shmups are usually harder, and Toaplan didn't screw around. But of these 4 games, they definitely vary quite a bit in terms of the difficulty. I would actually say Zero Wing is probably one of the easier ones. But you have continues in this, so you can brute force your way through it. When you die in this, you don't respawn instantly. There are checkpoints that the game will take you back to, which is much more kind of like how R-Type did things. So, that's something to keep in mind. But you can just, if you're not aiming to just get raw score and just want to get to the end, you can credit feed your way through this if you want. And if you play it co-op, obviously it makes things a little bit easier still, because you've got 2 people fighting, right? So that's kind of the idea behind that. Zero Wing is actually a pretty decent game, I think. It's hard for sure. And if you're more into vertical shmups, well, this isn't one of those, obviously. But I think it plays pretty well, and this tractor beam mechanic I think is pretty cool. It takes some practice to get used to it, because it's not what people are normally used to. It was very innovative at its time, and it's not something traditional shmup players are necessarily very used to, right? But if you learn it and you master it, it's invaluable in terms of helping you get through here. So yeah, that's the first one of these. All of these games have a decent number of levels. If you just credit feed your way through them, obviously they're not going to necessarily be that long. But if you want to beat them proper, you're going to put in some effort into this, without a doubt. So, all right, let's check out the next one here. So now we're going vertical. So yeah, this is Twin Cobra. This is another really good one. This one plays a little bit more like a maybe like a Raiden or something like that, where you're playing sort of a military helicopter that's scrolling forward and taking out other things. This is less of a shooting aliens kind of thing. Definitely more of I would say this is definitely a bit more of a traditional shmup. The one thing that's interesting about all of these games is that the power-up system is quite a bit different between them. So I forgot to talk about that in Zero Wing, but in Zero Wing you had 3 different weapons, and if you picked up multiples in a row of the same one, you would power it up and get a more powerful version of it, right? So that's a little bit different. So this game plays a bit more traditionally in the sense that you pick up power-ups, which will power up the weapon that you have, and there's different weapons you can pick up, and as opposed to that tractor beam, you've just got a screen clearer weapon. Now this weapon, your bombs in this do not clear the entire screen. As you see, they actually take a little while to deploy. They're not instant, and they clear an area in where they land. So you have to be prepared to fire it early and understand where you want it to land in order to do the most damage possible. So, see, it takes a little bit of time there. So it's not necessarily like some shmups where you press the bomb button, it instantly goes off, and it's going to clear the screen immediately to clear you out of a hairy situation. This one requires a little bit of planning and forethought. So, you know, it's not just a get out of jail free card, you know? So there we go, we picked up a different weapon there. And it's one of those things where when the weapon power-up drops, you can shoot it to change which one it is before you pick it up if you have a particular weapon that you're looking for. Again, this game is not easy. I would say this is, this is probably the easiest of the ones in the collection. And I say that only in that it's the least punishing. You know, these games are all tough. And but this one, being a little bit of an earlier title for them, I think is does a little bit more, makes things it takes things a little bit easier on you. Though at the same time, you know, as we showed in the technical piece, there's difficulty difficulty settings on these things too. You want to make this thing harder on yourself than the default? Oh, you can. And some arcade operators did that to try to get more money from people. Usually, you wouldn't see too many arcades that would turn up the difficulty too high, because if you make it too high, you're going to drive people away, right? And you had to be careful about that. But arcades that tended to cater more towards hardcore players or competitive players would definitely turn that up a notch. And you could do that here if you wanted. But I think this particular title, Twin Cobra, is going to be appealing most to people who are familiar with like the Raiden series, and titles like that, where, you know, it's vertical and somewhat focused. Adheres to more the standard formula of shmups of the time, the one that was very common. Not to say it's bad, far from it. This game is not bad. This game is really, really good. But it's the most recognizable type, let's put it that way, of shmups. Whereas things like Zero Wing have their own little mechanics and and differences to them that make them stand out from a lot of other games in the genre. This game is most familiar, but it's a very well crafted familiar title. So that's kind of what's good about this one. I think this is the one that people who've tended to play a lot of the more popular shmups from back in the day will probably recognize this one the most and feel most at home with it. Let's put it that way. So you can get extra bonuses there by picking up those P power-ups, but only ones that you have on you when you land. So if you get killed, you lose them all. Not if you lose the game or the credit, but just one life. So, but that's a good way to get some real big bonuses on that as well. And yeah, this has all of the options that the other games have as well. So that's the case with all of them here. So yeah, Twin Cobra is another good one. Honestly, I think if you're a shmup fan, you should just buy the bundle and get the whole lot of these, to be honest with you, because I think they're all good in their own different way. But the thing that I like about this is they picked games that were very different from each other. You know, these are all Toaplan, they're all distinctly Toaplan, but they don't all play the same. They took examples of all the different types of things they made to really showcase the different kinds of innovations that they made as a company in the genre. Stand by, ready? Good luck! Yeah, so this is cool. So this one here, this is another cool one. Outzone is you're actually playing a dude. You're not playing in the air. So this was kind of cool. So you have full freedom of movement here to turn around, and you're going to have to do that to deal with these large amounts of enemies here. Now, this game is hard. This one is really hard. And again, they made some innovations to the way the systems in this work. So you're going to see under my score in the upper left there that I have a vitality meter that is ticking down. Yeah, so you got to move quick here. This game does not allow you to sit still for very long because you have a vitality meter that is effectively your time limit. Now, you can pick up power-ups that will allow you to increase that. It's not, you know, one and done, but you have to stay on top of that to be able to do to be able to get through the level quickly. And you'll see here that there's a number of different power-ups that are dropping. There are very different weapons here. So this particular sort of spread shot that I picked up is handy, but as you can see, it locks your movement. So you can't spin anymore. You can only move, aim forward, but you have a very wide spread that covers the entire screen, which is pretty cool. This one gives you a powerful shot, but you have full freedom of movement. Now that can be good, but that can be tricky as well. So there I picked up an actual power-up for the weapon itself. That can be good, but that can be tricky as well, because you have to make sure that you manage the perspective in which you're facing in order to make sure that you're taking enemies out and that you don't have your back to them potentially when they might be trying to light you up. You know, that's something you have to watch as well. And there are bombs in here which are the more traditional screen clearer, right? So you've got to, you know, you can use those, and rather than clearing out only a specific enemy, you have the ability to clear the whole screen. And you see there, I actually ran my energy out, which slows you down at first because I have potentially the ability to get more energy and recharge things and get back in the fight before it runs out. So it's not an instant game over. But if you can't get some energy back and get it back quickly, well, you could lose a life there. So this one has a lot going on that you have to balance, and that's what it's not just the enemy encounters that make this game hard. Though they do, believe me, the game will throw a lot of high-end enemies at you quickly, and you can really get overwhelmed fast if you're not careful. But it's also having to juggle that energy, having to juggle your bomb usage, having to pay attention to the weapons that you pick up to make sure you're going to get the weapons that you want and the upgrades that you want that are better suited to the situation, because the game will throw new weapons at you all the time, but they may not always be the ideal weapons for the situation that you're going into. Like in this situation with these kinds of enemies here, this spinning color gun is probably not what I wanted. Probably what I actually wanted in this situation was that spread gun that locks my movement, because those enemies focused on coming from the top down. So that's something I should have made sure to stick with a particular gun for that encounter. And this game is going to it's going to require you to remember those kinds of things. You're going to need to really pay attention to managing your power-ups and managing your abilities and managing your energy to handle things in the best situation or the best ways for the situation that you have. And you saw there, there was a pit I fell out of, and it gave me in the environment some potential hazards for that. So this one, I think some would argue rightfully, is probably the hardest of the four. That opinions on that may change, but this one is also really satisfying to play because it doesn't play like a traditional shmup. You're a dude, you're not a ship. You have a lot of different systems to manage and weapons and systems that fundamentally affect the way the game plays in terms of movement mechanics and everything else. You have to understand different types of movement on the fly in order to be able to maximize what you can do in this and to maximize your play and get the best results. So I think this one might be one of the most fun ones to play in co-op too. It's going to be frustrating for people, but this would allow you to do things like have one player with each type of gun. It would be nice if there was a little bit more gun variety in this, at least in the early game, but this is already a lot to learn with the guns that you have, right? And I think this would be cool because it would allow you to have, two players focusing on different types of guns and gun specialties, which would probably, here's the Super Ball. That one's a cool one. I should have kept it longer. And that would allow you to really maximize what the game puts in front of you. So could be a really cool idea. But yeah, Truxton, or Outzone, I should say, is really, really cool and a really interesting, one of the more interesting titles in here. That's a good one to play as well. Arguably one of my favorite ones, despite being one of the hardest ones. And now we come to Truxton, and Truxton this one is more of a space shooter, but again, it's vertical. So you see how very different these 3 games are, right? Or these 4 games are. They really run the gamut in terms of genre and mechanics. They're not just, you know, as much as I love games like R-Type, for example, and titles like that, R-Type, it's the same theme, you know, with a bit of a different skin on it throughout. They don't tend to vary that much in terms of what you're doing. When you play an R-Type game, you know what you're getting into. But Toaplan did all of these really cool sort of one-off ideas where they would say, okay, we're going to make a new game. Let's come up with some new different ways of handling things, but we're not going to make every game like this. They didn't have the one innovation they were known for. They were known for doing a lot of games where they did a cool idea, and they did it once in many cases. They never did it again. But it always kept players on their toes and was always giving them something new rather than, again, variations on a theme that were safe. So in this one, obviously, enemy types and movement mechanics are different because we're playing a spaceship as opposed to a helicopter or a dude. And what's interesting about this one is that, again, this has area of effect style bombs as opposed to screen clearing bombs, but they fire instantly. So the bombs in this are very good at getting you out of a hairy situation quickly. They're not going to clear the screen for you, but they will clear the area around you, and they will do it instantly, as opposed to in Outzone where you had to actually drop you had to actually drop the bomb, or Twin Cobra, I said Outzone, Twin Cobra, where you actually had to drop the bomb and wait for it to hit. It didn't take long, but it was long enough that it could screw you in a pinch, right? Whereas this is instant. And what's neat about this one as well is while there are different weapon types, the way power-ups work is very different. So typically, you pick up a power-up for a weapon, and you get that power-up instantly. Well, you're going to see under my score in the upper left there, we've got the little P icons. So what you have to do in this one is you have to pick up 5 of the power-ups in order to actually level up your weapon. So it's not just grab one and that's it. But what's cool about that is that the power-ups that you have accumulated are persistent across lives. So if I have 4 power-ups and I need 5 to level up this gun, and I die, I don't have to start over. I will come back to life with those 4 power-ups, and I only need 1 more in order to level my gun up. The problem that a lot of checkpoint-based shmups have, and this goes back a long way, is that in many cases, if you die, you're effectively starting over at your checkpoint from a later point in the level with less ability to fight it. So you're effectively starting over with the basic weapons, but at a much later point in the game, which means that unless you're very good, there we go. So you see, I got my 5th power up, and now I got the full green force here. And yeah, the problem with those is that they would often handicap you because you would die, and then you would start over from a checkpoint with a much lower power gun. You're effectively starting from 0, except in your progression, which instantly made the game ridiculously hard. R-Type was famous for this. And that was by design to try to get, more money out of players, but it often made those games really, really frustrating because, you try to survive and get yourself some good guns and good power-ups, and then you die once and be basically screwed. So if you ever died once, you were effectively, just completely screwed. Whereas in this, it gives you the ability to feel like you still have hope and that you can get your power back. So you can see here that I died and I did lose the power up in my gun that I had, but at this point now there we go. So I died again here, but I only need 1 more power up now to upgrade my gun, which I just did. So it means that if you die mid-level, you're not going to go, well, that's the end of me, I'm screwed. You are able to get yourself charged back up and have a little bit more hope that even though you died, that you can take on the next challenge that you have coming towards you, as opposed to the game just throwing you back into, square one, basically. I think that is a really cool innovation. Not nearly enough shmups did that. This is not the only one that did, but not nearly enough did. And what I liked about what I really think these Toaplan games showed is that even though they were arcade games and they were designed to be hard and they were obviously designed to get money out of you because that's how arcades worked, this game felt like it respected the player a lot more than a lot of other ones did. It respected that you put in time and effort into them and that you didn't want to feel like it was game over and that you were boned if you died so much as once in it. You know, it really felt like they understood that you have to give the player hope and you can't just constantly rob the player of everything if you want them to feel like they're contributing to the game and like the game isn't against them and that the game isn't their enemy, if you will. And a lot of developers didn't understand that. A lot of developers just made their games hard to go, let's extract as much money as we could. But it felt like Toaplan struck a balance really, really well that made it feel like, yeah, that they respected you as a player and that they didn't just want to punish you all the time. And that they wanted to say, yeah, you died here, and if you get good, that might not happen, but we're not going to send you right back to the start and basically laugh at you because you failed once, which is what a lot of games in this genre did. And I always respected them for that, and I just always respected the fact that they wanted to have innovation and they wanted to come up with new systems and they wanted to try different things all the time, and they didn't just want to play it safe and make new skins of the same game. Like, I love the Raiden series, but you can't deny that a lot of those early Raiden games were extremely similar to each other. And they pushed the boundary. They came up with new ideas and they gave other developers, you know, they challenged other developers to come up with different and new ideas. And I think the shmup genre would be far, far less without Toaplan in it. And I think that's a very important thing. And I'm really happy to see this developer getting some more love and getting their games in a position like this where they can be easily accessible to more people so that they don't have to use emulators and that they can just play them easily with a lot of modern quality of life improvements brought to the table as well to make things to really give people an accessible way to experience these classics and understand why Toaplan was so innovative and is so well regarded in the shmup community. Because the shmup genre, while it's having a little bit of a resurgence right now with new games, has an incredible amount of history behind it. And if you really need to understand that history, if you really want to have a full appreciation for where these games began and where they came from. And Toaplan were leaders in that regard. And though it needed a little bit of work to get where it is, I think Bitwave have done a very good job at taking some of their best games and putting them out on modern systems, emulated extremely well, and with really good quality of life improvements that people expect out of modern games, and at a very reasonable price. You know, they've implied that this is the first bundle and that there may be more. I really hope there is. Toaplan has a rich catalog to draw from, and I would definitely love to see that done. And I'd love to see other classic shmup series maybe get this treatment at some point too. There's a lot of developers out there who made a lot of great games in this genre that we really just haven't seen in modern systems. And preservation is important, and getting good games like this in front of people at a good price is always a good thing. So, I know this was a longer video, but there was a lot to talk about here, and I hope you found it valuable. And if you are either a shmup fanatic or someone who thinks you could get into the genre, absolutely look at these. They're a great collection and of some of the best shmups ever made, and at a really, really good price with some really good features. So I do recommend that. So yeah, that is the Toaplan Shoot 'em Up bundle. That's what I'm calling it anyway. It is out now on PC. Again, your best value is to buy all 4 games, and I do recommend you do that. But if you really want just particular ones that really seem to get your attention the most, you have that option, and you have the option of paying a little bit less if you want less than 3 of them. So very good there. Very good collection from Bitwave. I've been impressed to see that. I hope this does well enough for them that they can get access to more stuff, because I would absolutely love to see it. They did a poll on their Discord a while ago asking what other series people would like to see. So maybe they're looking around to see what they can come up with. Love to see that. So thank you all for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things, like, subscribe, hit that bell, leave a comment down below. Tell me, what do you think of this? You know, are you a Toaplan fan who, you know, thinks they did well by these? Are you someone who's not into shmups who might give them a try now with this? I'd love to know that. What other classic shmup series would you love to see revived on modern systems? Because boy, there's a lot of them, and I would definitely love to hear what you guys have to say about that. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other retro stuff, starting to do more of that lately, as well as indie games over there, including a lot of things that you won't see over here on YouTube. We have a great community there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thank you again all, and I'll see you on the next Retro Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.